Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to speak about the Jewish perspective of the afterlife. What do we believe happens to us when we move on from this world from a Jewish perspective? What is the Jewish idea of heaven and hell? So I'm excited to get into this, and the first thing I want to clarify is that Jews very much do believe in a soul and the concept of a soul, of a spiritual self that is the truth of who we are, that this soul, the state of consciousness, is one with the Creator and that can never die, that will always live on. What animates us, our life force, our soul, that will never die, that will always live on. So the question that I want to cover in this video is what happens to that life force, to the truth of who we are when we move on from this world? What does it experience? Where does it go? And that's what I want to cover in this video. Now, the idea of the afterlife and heaven and hell in Judaism is quite different from how other religions view it, like Christianity and Islam. It's very different because Judaism doesn't believe that you're decreed to one place for the rest of your life and that's it. We believe that everybody has a different level of experiencing both heaven and hell, but every soul experiences both. So we believe that God takes into account every single action that we make in this life. It's not that you do just one thing, like believe in God, and you're guaranteed heaven. And it's not that you do one bad sin, and then you're just guaranteed to be in hell for the rest of eternity. We don't believe either of those. We believe that every soul experiences both. How so? Well, first of all, the idea of hell is not how other religions make it out to be. We view it as really a cleansing process for the soul. Because the soul, being a part of God, right? In Genesis, it says that God blew the soul of life into Adam, right? What that means is that God took from himself, right? What do you do when you blow? You take from your breath, from your internal self, and he gave over a part of himself to the human being. So the soul is a part of God. It's so holy, it's pure light. And when it comes down into this world, it faces the struggle of being stained by the negative actions a human chooses to make. We don't realize it, but when we commit sins, when we do things that are contrary to what the Bible tells us to do, we create stains on our soul, right? We create dirt on our soul. And when we move on from this world, in order to get to heaven, which is closeness to the Creator, to the light of the Creator, we can't get there unless our soul is purified and clean. What is the cleansing process in order to purify the soul, in order to get to heaven? It is what we call hell, or Gehenna in Hebrew. It is this process of purging the soul of all of the impurities that it acquired during its life on earth. So the more that one sinned in life, the more that one committed negative actions, the more painful that this purging process will be for them. It says that it's so painful that it doesn't even compare to all of human suffering in the world. So everybody is bound to pass through this place, Gehenna, which is a cleansing process. But the degree of how much bad you did in your life is how bad that process will be for you, how painful, how much suffering you will live through throughout this process of hell. But you are not destined to burn there forever. Some people are, some souls are, only ones who commit tremendous evil, but most of humanity, it's only a process and they'll get through it. But it's excruciatingly painful and it's tremendous suffering, because we have to remember that God is a God of justice, and you can't just go around in this life, do whatever you want and pay no consequences. God is a God of justice, and he will meet everyone with their indicated consequences. So when you see somebody in this life who is evil and does wrong, but they seem to have a great life, they're going to get their deserved consequences. That's why this idea of hell, of Gehenna, is necessary. But it will only be for a certain amount of time. It is not forever. It is a cleansing process, but it will be excruciatingly painful according to the degree of how much bad you did in your life. Whereas if you kept your soul holy and clean, or if you repented of your negative ways, then you will not experience so much suffering when you go through this purging process of cleansing the soul of all the negativity you attached to it, you leached onto it throughout your life in this world. And now, what is the idea of heaven? So it's not that you inherit heaven just by believing in something. Like Christianity proclaims that if you believe in Jesus to be God, you inherit heaven. Judaism doesn't view the world that way. We don't believe that if you just do one thing, you get heaven. No, rather, God takes into account every single human action, from the thoughts that you think, to the words that you said, to every action that you've done, to the intentions of your heart. He takes everything into account, and he gives you the portion in heaven that is appropriate for the life that you lived. So somebody who lived an incredibly righteous life in every measure and every avenue, they will get a portion in heaven that is much greater and much more pleasurable than somebody who only did very little good action in their life. We believe that there's different realms of consciousness in heaven, right? That the greatest pleasure a human can feel is mental pleasure, closeness to God. That is the greatest bliss. And only the souls who really use their life on earth to grow in closeness to their Creator, those are the souls that will get the highest level of bliss for all of eternity in heaven. Okay? But souls who committed lots of evil, barely did any good, they're going to be on a very low rung within heaven, right? We believe that not everybody inherits the same heaven, that there's different levels of consciousness, and those different levels of consciousness allow different levels of bliss and pleasure. Look at our lives today. What every human desires and strives for is the feeling of pleasure. When you get to the root of it, why do you want food? Why do you want water? Why do you want money? Why do you want a relationship? We're all looking for pleasure. It is the human desire. It's our motivation, really. And it's the same thing in the next world, except in the next world, it'll be purely spiritual pleasure that we will be experiencing. Pure spiritual bliss. But the closer you are to God, the more pleasure we will experience. But the farther you are from the light of the Creator, that will be the degree of pleasure you will experience, but probably not as much as those who will be closer to the light of God. And why won't you be as close to the light of God? Because your soul acquired way too much dirt on it. And the process of refinement, which we consider hell, can only refine your soul to a certain degree. The process of our human life here is to expand our vessel, right? To expand the light of our soul, so that when we move on from this world, we can be even closer to God than we could have ever been had we never come down to this world. What we choose to do in our life here, dedicate our life to spiritual efforts or dedicate our life to just materialism, that will define a lot of the eternal bliss we will be experiencing in the next life. So the Jewish perspective, to sum up a little bit, is that no soul is destined to experience either heaven or hell forever and they're just stuck there. Rather, we all experience both, but the degree of which we experience both is dependent on the actions we took in our life down here. We must know that everything has its consequence, from the bad that you did to the good that you did, from a negative thought that you thought to a positive thought that you thought. Everything has its consequence. God will give you the justice for everything. Everything. No one moves on without meeting the justice that they deserve in life. It's pure exactness that God will meet with every single one of us. So the soul always lives on. Of course it does. It's clear as day. Souls live on. But the process they go through first is Gehenna, and it's excruciatingly painful for the soul. And then it can go on to heaven. Now, what is this heaven? Heaven is Gan Eden. We believe that the Garden of Eden is where the souls move on towards when they leave this world. And what is the Garden of Eden? It's a different state of consciousness. We don't believe that the souls go to a different planet, like they go to Jupiter or something. We believe that when the soul moves on, it enters a different plane of conscious reality. So it's able to experience reality on a whole different state of consciousness. Us humans who are in bodies, frankly, we're very limited in our state of consciousness. Certain souls exceed what most souls can do within a body, but most of humanity is very limited in the state of consciousness that we can get towards. When the soul leaves the body, it's no longer blocked by the body's physicality, and it can finally ascend to a higher state of consciousness. Where does it go to? Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. It only gets there after it goes through the process of refinement, of purging the soul of all of its impurity, and it gets to Gan Eden. That is where all the souls are stored when they move on from this world, if they don't reincarnate. That's where they are stored. Now, what is God's master plan? God's master plan is what's called the world to come. That is not yet, but it will be. That after the Messiah comes, as Judaism believes, it originates from Judaism, that there will be a Messiah, not a godly figure, just a leader for the people like Moses, who will lead humanity into godly consciousness and godly awareness, and will reestablish the kingship in Jerusalem, and will reestablish moral reign within humanity and godly awareness within all of humanity. This Messiah will establish the Messianic age, and we will live in the world in a utopian form for about 1,000 years, a whole millennia. After this, we believe in what's called the world to come. That after the Messiah and his children and his grandchildren, and there's lived a couple generations, after we've experienced that as a collective humanity, our souls will finally be able to be the vessels for the next world. What's the next world? It's called Olam Haba. Okay, that's the true eternity. That's the true place where your soul will stand. Olam Haba is basically the true idea of heaven, but that does not yet exist, that no soul has experienced yet, at least to our intellectual capacity. All souls right now, when they pass away, they're in Gan Eden. But when the Messiah comes, and after the Messiah, we will enter into a whole different world, right? Where there will be no more this world. There will be no more humans, humanity. We will enter into a completely spiritual reality where all souls will be completely one with the Creator, and we will return to absolute oneness and consciousness of absolute expansion and godliness. Now, once again, in this place of Olam Haba, the degree of how much you exerted yourself in life when you had free will to make the right choices, that is the degree of the next world, how much spiritual bliss you will actually have. You are here to expand the light of your soul while you have the free will to do it. In order to truly earn the next world, you need to have free will in this life. And the degree to which you expanded your soul is the degree of bliss you're going to be able to experience when we reach Olam Haba, the next world. Judaism places so much value on this world, on how you live your life here, because you don't want to waste it. You don't want to use this life wasted, right? You want to really maximize every single second that you have in this world because it's an opportunity of a lifetime. That you get to amass the next world depending on how much good you did in this life, how much you got outside of your comfort zone to be more of a spiritual person. Now, what do we believe in regards to Jews and Gentiles? We believe that both Jews and Gentiles inherit the next world. Everyone does, but depending on how much they exerted themselves to live in accordance with God's law. So a Jew who did not live in accordance with God's law, lived an evil, wicked life, they will not experience such bliss in the next world. They will experience Gehenna, which is the purgatory process, right? They will be cleansed, but then they'll go to Gan Eden, the place where the souls are stored until the world to come. And they'll experience it according to what their soul can receive. But when Olam Haba comes, when the next world comes, they will not experience it as blissful as they could have because of the life they lived when they had free will. But now you take a Jew who lived an extremely pious life, an extremely devoted life to God, living in alignment with his will. That person's Olam Haba, which literally means world to come, will be immense, will be super blissful, super pleasurable, and they will inherit a big portion in the world to come. So too with a Gentile. A Gentile who lived a life in accordance with the will of God for a Gentile, they will experience a greater portion in the next life than a Gentile who lived a completely wicked life. We don't believe that if you do just one good thing, you inherit the same thing as everyone. We believe that every action is taken into account. I hope that's clear. That every tiny good that you could have done, there will be reward for it. But every tiny bad that you did, there will be consequence for it. Everything that you did is taken into account by the Creator. It says in Ethics of Our Father that there's an eye that sees everything that you do, an ear that hears everything that you say, and that everything that you do is written down in a book. Nothing is unseen by the Creator. God sees our every action, our every move, our every heart's intent, and everything is taken into account. And according to that will be the portion you get when you move on from this world. Of course, we believe in the next life. Of course, we believe that there is heaven and hell, but it is not how other people view it. We believe that even if you were an atheist, even if you didn't believe in God, if you robbed and you cheated and you stole, but let's say one day you gave charity, right? You gave, it's a millionaire, right? That person gave $100,000 to charity. All their wickedness will have its consequence, but it won't take away from that charity they gave once. But God will decide how much charity that person should have actually gave and how righteous it really was for them to give charity. But of course, they will get the reward that's indicated for the charity that they did give. So we don't believe it's one or the other, but that rather everything is taken into account, and you will get the degree of hell according to how much bad you did, and the degree of heaven according to how much good you did. But none of us have the same level in heaven, and none of us have the same level in hell. It's all dependent on the lives that we choose to live. It's not that me and you go to heaven and we're in the same state. We're in the same state of consciousness. You see, the concept of jealousy, it's actually spiritual. It's not an animalistic thing. It's a very spiritual thing. And we're actually told that jealousy will still be a thing in the next life. Jealousy is very much a part of our world. God instilled it within us for a very big purpose. Why? To motivate us to do more with our lives, to motivate us to do better. Jealousy is a great thing when you use it to be jealous of other spiritual standing, because that will motivate you to be more spiritual. Now, when you get jealous of other people materialistically, that's just ridiculous because God gives materialism. But jealousy is actually good when you use it to be jealous of other people's spiritual standing in order to motivate you to do better. Now, when you move on and we move on to the next world, that will still stand. Whereas you see a soul who use their life for absolute good and purpose, and they're in a whole different state of spiritual bliss, and you're in a very low place because you chose to waste your life here, you will be jealous of that soul. So our actions matter tremendously in this life. It's so important to align our lives to the Bible. It's so important to keep to God's law. Everything is taken into account. Nobody is totally righteous. Nobody is totally wicked. Every action has its corresponding consequence. And that's really what we believe about the next life. That for now, souls go to the Garden of Eden. And again, they get bliss according to what kind of lives they lived. But the true eternal world is not yet. That will only be after the Messiah comes into our world and we go through a whole process. That next world, that is for all of eternity. Now, while the souls that pass away from this world are stored in the Garden of Eden, which is, again, a different realm of consciousness, not necessarily a different physical place, but rather a different realm of awareness, while they're stored there, they actually still have the opportunity to merit a greater Olam Haba, next world after the Messiah comes, through the actions of the humans down here. So for example, if you have a father or a mother who passed away, you can still give them a greater next world by doing good actions in their merit, by praying in their name, by studying Torah in their merit. When you do that, you actually expand the light of their soul so that when the next world comes into reality, they can experience a much more expanded self because of the actions you took for them. So I hope that covered everything. If I'm missing something, maybe I'll make a part 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please let me know if you have any questions, and I hope that was clear as it could have been. I'm wishing you guys all a wonderful day. And it's a complex topic. It's not so simple. I really brought it down in very brought it down in very simple terms, but there's much more detail to all of it. I hope I explained myself correctly. And God is a God of justice, and everybody will meet exactly according to the actions they took.